All right, you've just been listening to about a half an hour, maybe a little bit longer, of an NTSB press conference that seemed to get a little contentious there at the end. Joining us now live in studio to discuss is Fox Report anchor John Scott. John is a licensed pilot, and there was a lot of information that was presented. But the one piece of information that it seemed like everybody in the press was latching onto, and we were all latching onto here on set, was this discrepancy between the ADSB flight data recorder saying that the CRJ, which was the plane, was at 325 feet, whereas the radar scope that was in the tower showed that plane at 200 feet. I'm going to ask a question that I believe Grady Trimble tried to ask there at the end. Why? Why would there be a discrepancy like that? Is there a problem with the radar scope? Because as we were chatting, you even said the ADSB is probably the most accurate, so this plane was probably at 325 feet when the crash happened. Why, John? Why?
I think it was at 325 feet, and I honestly think that he misspoke when he said radar showed the plane at 200 feet. I think he meant to say that the helicopter showed at 200 feet because that's where the helicopter was supposed to be. And I've looked at the ADSB track of the helicopter, and it was at 200 feet, not long, I mean, just a few seconds before the collision. And I think that the helicopter made a sudden climb, a relatively sudden climb. Maybe they weren't aware of it. It was a gusty night. Sometimes wind gusts can lift you up and down. But I think that's what the discrepancy is. I think he was referring to the chopper at 200 feet, which is where it was expected to be, and the plane at 325 feet. There's virtually no question in my mind that the plane was exactly where it was supposed to be on the glide slope, and it's supposed to have clear air in front of it all the way to the runway.
Which is why it's so important that we get that data from the Black Hawk helicopter. That's sort of that third piece of the puzzle here that we're waiting for, from what I understand. But also, you mentioned the frustration, some of the pushback. I mean, folks really need to settle in for this investigation, don't they? Because as he explained, you know, they're talking to the air traffic controllers. There were 5 people in the booth at the same time, and they haven't interviewed all of them yet. Folks, I think at home would expect that everyone had been talked to at this time. However, it does take some time, and they're looking at everything. They're looking at medications. They're looking at medical history, training, fatigue. The list goes on.
Right. These NTSB investigations can take minimum 6 months and often a year or more. So it's going to be a long time. We'll get a preliminary report from them within 30 days, and they'll have some pretty good information there. But the full report won't be out for, I bet, a year.
Well, you know, John, and to your point, one of the things that I took away that he said right off the bat was there are 1,204 aviation safety events reported last year alone. 1,145 are still open. So that means less than 5% that were reported last year have been closed. I mean, is that an acceptable rate, or is that a failure of an understaffed program?
Well, I can't speak to that. I think that, you know, there are a lot of transportation issues that the NTSB investigates. He was referring, I think, in those numbers specifically to aircraft accidents. Yeah, and there are obviously a lot of them involving, you know, smaller aircraft, not necessarily jetliners. This one is getting so much attention because, you know, virtually everybody jumps on a jet and flies. Smaller aircraft, those accidents get investigated as well, and it just takes a while.
John, your insight is invaluable, having been a pilot, an active pilot. And I thought Todd Inman from the NTSB is doing a yeoman's work. That is a tough, difficult, emotional thing. He let his emotions show at the end. Yeah. And it was actually good to see, because these are real people having to deal with real things. And they want to provide answers as soon as they could. So I appreciate people who wear that out on their sleeve, and they're working hard like that. My question is about the corridors. You know, you're not going to operate a helicopter at 0 feet, and you're probably not going to do it at 20 feet. But how common is it to have a corridor that's 200 feet high and have a 100 foot or so difference between a plane that's coming down and a helicopter? I mean, you're right, the wind gusts, the turbulence, the human error it's just ripe for a disaster. But they've been doing that in one of the most busiest corridors that there is for a long time, yet we haven't seen an accident.
I'm sure as a congressman, you flew into DCA a million times.
Exactly.
And probably landed on runway 33. Actually, the airlines like landing on that runway because when they get down to the end of it, they're closer to the terminal than most of them use. So, this discussion in the cockpit that took place between the pilot and co-pilot, they probably said, oh, yeah, he wants us on 3-3, great. But the 1,000 foot, 1,000 feet, when two planes are flying, at 35,000 feet, 1,000 feet is considered the minimum distance between them that they want. 100 feet, to me, is a very narrow margin for error. But that's the way the corridor is designed. I mean, it's on the charts. I looked at them. They can be at 200 feet north of the Woodrow Wilson Bridge, and then when they get south of DCA to the bridge, they can go as high as 300 feet. But in this case, it sounds like they were up there already too high, and who knows why.
John, let's listen again to some sound from this press conference on the flight data recorder. Once again, for those viewers just joining us, take a listen.
The flight data recorder and the cockpit voice recorder from the PSA aircraft were recovered on Thursday in the late afternoon by the FBI dive team. The CVR and the FDR were provided to engineers at the NTSB Vehicle Recorders Division immediately after recovery. Both the FDR and the CVR were a L3 Harris Communications FA 2100 type. Both recorders are solid-state memory digital recorders. Both the CVR and the FDR were downloaded successfully.
John, it's great news that we were able to get that information. We're still, I believe, waiting on the Black Hawk. There was some water damage, but I think they're optimistic they're going to be able to get the recording. Here is a question I have, and I know it makes sense in the aviation world, but to a layperson it doesn't. You have the military on one frequency, and you have the civilian aircraft on another, and they're not communicating with each other. It has to go through a third party. And when we heard them give the rundown, the air traffic control was saying traffic, and 2 minutes later, there was an impact. I mean, maybe should we consider having them on a similar frequency?
Well, the military has UHF frequencies because if they're out in Iraq or Afghanistan, they're actually they're making battle plans on encrypted frequencies on UHF. So getting the military to change over to VHF is not going to happen. VHF is what the airlines use. It's what little planes like mine use. And when we first heard the tower communicating with the chopper, we didn't hear any response because those apps, if you want to call them that monitor aircraft communications like ATC.net, they're monitoring VHF frequencies, and they didn't pick up the UHF response. And in fact, I think it might even be illegal to monitor UHF frequencies, our military frequencies. So
yeah, John, I have a quick question. So from what we understand, Todd Inman was asked about how the tower radar scope was able to read the plane, and then he was also asked, were they also able to see the helicopter? And he very carefully said it could read the helicopter, but he didn't answer whether or not they did.
I think that's because they have a better handle on what the airplane was doing at this point, primarily because of the ADSB data. This Black Hawk actually had a black box in it. I just learned this evening. Most of them don't. So they're going to get more information on this particular incident, this crash, than they normally would. But again, the radar, think of what a radar is doing. It's kind of sweeping around, and every 10, 15 seconds, it gives you a position of the aircraft that you're looking for. So it sweeps around, it sees the Black Hawk at 200 feet, and then it goes around another 360 degrees, and maybe before it gets back to where the CRJ is, maybe that Black Hawk has climbed. And I think that's what happened here.
I have a big picture question, maybe for you, but may also be for our former congressman over here. It was something the NTSB spokesperson, Todd Inman, said at the very end of the press conference. He implied that the NTSB has all these investigations and they make recommendations. But there was an implication in what he said, I don't know if you all caught it, that those recommendations aren't always followed. To a layperson, I was under the impression that when there's a horrific incident, the NTSB investigates, files a report, makes the recommendations, and then those recommendations are 100% of the time implemented by all parties involved, whether they're the airlines, the FAA, and the like. You're shaking your head, John. Is that not what happens? And if not, why?
Maybe Jason can speak to this, but the dirty little secret in Washington is that the NTSB and the FAA are very often at loggerheads. In some circumstances, you might even say they dislike each other. So the NTSB, which is in charge of safety and creating the safest system that they can and learning from these accidents, as he said, will make these recommendations. And then the FAA will say, no.
Yeah, I don't think that's a big secret. I think that happens through the whole of government. If you go to oversight.gov right now here today, I think you'll look at it and you'll see that there are more than 14,000 recommendations for all of government in terms of oversight, what the inspectors general and people like the NTSB are making suggestions, and that the bureaucracy just doesn't do it. And that's a whole nother hour of discussion. Suffice it to say, I think the next generation of the technology, I mean, you look at those screens. Look, I remember playing, some video games back in the 80s when I was in high school. It looks like the same screen.
Right.
They haven't exactly progressed with technology along the way. Technology development and acquisition is horrific in the whole of government, and is, I'm sure, the same at the FAA.
This may be a rhetorical question, but if the FAA is not keeping us safe, then what is the FAA doing?
Well, hold on, Todd. For one thing, though, just someone who works in academia and big hospital institutions, and we get a lot of recommendations from a lot of different bureaucratic, people, and you can't take all of the recommendations because some of them really are overreaches, and some of them actually will make things less.
But where are you getting those recommendations from? Academia? Or the people that are literally trained to look for these problems, like the NTSB, like he said, more so than anybody in the world?
Administrative people like to make a lot of recommendations that don't necessarily equate into real world. So I think Secretary Duffy is going to come in right now and take a look at some of these recommendations that have been made and question why haven't some of these been followed, and some of them shouldn't have been followed. But I guarantee, I mean, look at Secretary Duffy. He has been out. He has been out every single minute since he has been sworn in, and he's continuing to keep people up to date. I think this next year we're going to see a lot more out of transportation.
He's got a busy job trying to put all this together.
Yeah.
John, we cannot thank you enough for sticking around.
Thank you.
That information was invaluable. Thank you, sir.